The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched nearly a kilometer in every direction. Its walls were made of crystalline material that shifted colors with each speaker's words, creating a visual symphony of light that had witnessed 10,000 years of decisions. Today, those walls flickered with shades of purple and red, the colors of amusement and contempt. Ambassador Elena Chen stood in the center of the chamber, her simple black suit a stark contrast to the elaborate forms surrounding her. To her left floated the Vorthai delegation, beings of living crystal whose bodies refracted light into countless rainbows. To her right squatted the Kelesh cluster, a mass of interconnected insectoid creatures that moved as one, speaking with 1,000 voices in perfect unison. Behind her loomed the Dellium representatives, four-armed giants whose gray skin bore the scars of countless battles across centuries of life. "Let us be clear," announced High Counselor Vexthal of the Vorthai, his crystalline form resonating with barely concealed mockery. "Earth requests full membership in this council. Earth, a species that has barely left its own star system. Earth, whose fastest vessels require years to reach even their nearest neighbors. Earth, whose weapons still rely on chemical reactions and metal projectiles." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Kelesh swarm chittered in amusement, their 1,000 voices creating an unsettling harmony. Even the normally stoic Dellium allowed themselves rumbling chuckles that sounded like distant thunder. Chen waited for the laughter to die down. She had expected this. Her briefing had prepared her for the dismissal, the mockery, the casual cruelty of civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. She kept her face neutral, her hands clasped behind her back. "Humanity has met all the requirements for council membership," Chen said calmly. "We have established peaceful contact with 3 existing council species. We have demonstrated faster-than-light capability. We have submitted our technological and cultural databases for review. We have brought our defense fleet to this station as a gesture of good faith." "Your defense fleet?" Admiral Thaxul of the Dellium Empire stepped forward, his forearms crossed over his massive chest. "Those 12 ships docked at the outer ring? We counted them, human. 12 vessels, each smaller than our supply transports." The chamber's walls flashed orange, the color of derision. "My empire alone commands 10,000 warships," Thaxul continued. "The Vorthai maintain 8,000. Even the youngest council race fields 3,000 vessels. And you arrive with 12? He shook his great head. "This is an insult. You waste our time." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Those 12 ships represent Earth's commitment to peaceful dialogue. We brought our diplomatic fleet, not our full military diplomatic fleet." Vexthal interrupted. "Human, do not embarrass yourself further with obvious lies. Our intelligence network is thorough. We have monitored your system for 50 of your years. We have watched your every satellite launch, every test flight, every construction yard. We know the full extent of your capabilities. Those 12 ships are not a diplomatic gesture. They are everything you have." The Kelesh swarm spoke next, their voices overlapping in eerie synchronization. "We have analyzed your vessels. Chemical rockets for maneuvering, kinetic projectiles for weapons, energy shields that could barely stop a micrometeorite. Your most advanced ship is equivalent to what the Council was building 3,000 years ago. You are primitives playing at spacefaring." Chen's smile didn't waver, though inside she felt a cold satisfaction. The intelligence gathering had worked exactly as planned. The satellites had been detected. The test flights had been observed. The construction yards, the obvious ones, had been catalogued and assessed. Everything was going according to plan. "Nevertheless," Chen said, "we formally request denied," Thaxul announced. "The Council has no interest in babysitting a race that can barely defend its own world. However, the Dellium Empire is not without mercy. We offer Earth protectorate status. You will place your system under our military authority. You will pay tribute of raw materials and trade goods. In exchange, we will ensure no harm comes to your primitive world." "And if we refuse?" Chen asked. The Admiral's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "Then you will learn why the Dellium Empire has endured for 5,000 years, while countless upstart races have been reduced to footnotes in history. Economic sanctions at minimum. Blockade of your system if you prove stubborn. Military action if you prove foolish." The chamber's walls pulsed red, the color of agreement. The other council races nodded their approval, or whatever passed for nodding in their varied anatomies. Chen appeared to consider this for a long moment. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Finally, she bowed her head slightly. Earth accepts protectorate status, she said quietly. We recognize that we have much to learn from the established powers of the galaxy. We are grateful for the Council's wisdom and the Dellium Empire's generous offer. The walls flashed gold, the color of satisfaction. Vextal's crystalline body chimed with pleasure. A wise decision, human. Perhaps your species shows more intelligence than we credited. You may return to your ships and convey our terms to your government. Chen turned to leave, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. She had almost reached the exit portal when she paused and looked back. One question, if I may, she asked. Krethel waved a dismissive hand. Speak. Has the Council considered that they may have been mistaken in their assessment of humanity? The question hung in the air. Then the laughter began again, louder this time. The Kellish swarm's chittering grew into a roar. The Vorthai crystals chimed like breaking glass. The Dellium delegation slapped their thighs with all four arms. Mistaken? Vextal managed between chimes of laughter. Human, we have sensors that can detect a child's toy from 1,000 light-years away. We have intelligence networks that have toppled empires. We have been watching your species since you first split the atom. There is no mistake. You are primitives with delusions of grandeur. Chen nodded slowly. I see. Then you are absolutely certain that those 12 ships represent the full extent of Earth's military capability? Absolutely, Krethul stated. We have watched your every move for half a century. We know every ship you have built, every weapon you have tested, every soldier you have trained. You cannot hide from the Council's gaze. Thank you for clarifying that, Chen said. It's good to know exactly where we stand. She turned again to leave, but Krethul called out, You seem remarkably calm for someone whose world has just been subjugated. Human. Chen glanced back one final time. Her smile was different now, colder, sharper, touched with something the Council delegates couldn't quite identify. In hindsight, they would recognize it as pity. You've only seen what we wanted you to see, she said quietly. Then she walked through the portal and was gone. The chamber erupted in laughter again, but there was an edge of uncertainty to it now. Vextal's colors flickered briefly toward blue, the color of unease, before settling back to gold. Primitive bluster, he announced. Pay it no mind. But deep in the station's docking ring, as Ambassador Chen boarded her shuttle, she activated her encrypted communicator. The message was brief, sent on a frequency the Council's sensors couldn't detect, using quantum entanglement technology that made distance meaningless. They've bought it completely, she transmitted. They think those 12 ships are everything we have. They're certain they've been watching us for 50 years. They know nothing about the Mars facilities, the asteroid belt shipyards, or the Oort cloud bases. The deception is complete. The response came instantly from Earth, from a bunker hidden 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, from Fleet Admiral Sarah Kowalski. Understood. Return home, Ambassador, and watch the news feeds. The Dellium won't be able to resist making an example of us. When they do, we'll be ready to show them what humanity really looks like when we stop pretending to be harmless. Chen allowed herself a genuine smile as her shuttle undocked and began its journey home. Behind her, the Council continued their session, already forgetting about the primitive humans who had just accepted their place as subjects. They would remember soon enough. Fleet Commander Thaxul stood on the bridge of the inevitable judgment, his flagship and the pride of the Dellium Third Battle Fleet. Behind him, displayed on holographic screens that wrapped around the spherical command center, 300 warships held formation in perfect military precision. Each vessel was a testament to Dellium engineering, sleek, deadly, and backed by 5,000 years of conquest. Status report, Thaxul commanded, his forearms moving through practice gestures that controlled multiple systems simultaneously. All ships ready for combat operations. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we are positioned at the edge of human space. Designation Sector 447. Long-range sensors detect minimal activity. The primitive warning satellites they deployed have already registered our presence. Thaxul's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. 3 weeks had passed since the humiliating council session, where the humans had accepted protectorate status. 3 weeks of planning this demonstration, the council had decided that words alone were insufficient. The humans needed to understand viscerally what their defiance would cost them. Broadcast on all frequencies. Thaxul ordered, let the humans hear their fate. The communications officer activated the system, and Thaxul's voice boomed across space, powerful and absolute. "Attention, humans of Earth. This is Fleet Commander Thaxul of the Dellium Imperial Navy. You have been granted the honor of protectorate status under Dellium authority. Your refusal to immediately surrender control of your outer colonies and submit to occupation forces is unacceptable. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Failure to do so will result in the military occupation of your territories and the destruction of any vessels that resist. This is your only warning." The message repeated automatically while Thaxul settled into his command throne. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had done this 100 times before with a dozen different species. The pattern was always the same. Initial resistance, a demonstration of overwhelming force, and then complete capitulation. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting movement from the human colony on the 3rd planet of this system. Civilian transports are launching." "Evacuating?" Thaxul mused. "At least they show some survival instinct. Weapons maintain target lock on those transports. If they flee, we let them go. Our quarrel is with their military, not their refugees." "Sir, I'm also detecting—" "Wait." The sensor officer's voice carried a note of confusion. "Commander, I'm reading 12 contacts emerging from behind the system's gas giant." They match the signatures of the vessels we observed at the council station. Thaxul sat forward. "The same 12 ships?" "Yes, Commander. Identical energy signatures. They're moving to intercept our formation." Silence fell over the bridge. Every crew member turned to look at their commander, waiting for orders, but more than that, waiting for an explanation that made sense. Thaxul's 4 hands gripped the armrests of his throne. 12 ships, he said slowly. "Against 300. Orders, Commander?" The tactical officer asked. Thaxul laughed, a deep rumbling sound that shook his massive frame. "They cannot be serious. This must be a delaying tactic. Sensors full sweep. Find their real fleet. They must have reinforcements hiding somewhere." The sensor officer worked frantically, pouring through data streams, scanning every planet, every moon, every asteroid large enough to hide a vessel. "Commander, I'm detecting nothing. No hidden ships, no additional energy signatures, no FTL wakes indicating incoming reinforcements. It's just those 12 vessels." "Impossible," Thaxul muttered, but his tactical displays confirmed it. 12 small ships, moving in a scattered formation, accelerating toward his fleet at speeds that were respectable, but not impressive. "Perhaps their leadership is insane," suggested the tactical officer. "Or perhaps they hope we will show mercy if they make a token resistance." Thaxul considered this. He had fought many species over his 3 centuries of military service, and he had learned to read tactics and strategy like others read simple text. This made no sense. Humanity had shown intelligence at the council. They had accepted terms rather than face destruction. Why throw away 12 ships in a meaningless gesture? "Unless it's a test," Thaxul said suddenly. "They want to see how we fight. They're sacrificing these ships to gather tactical data." That at least made sense. It was still foolish. What good was tactical data when you lacked the forces to use it? But it suggested a primitive cunning. "Very well," Thaxul decided. "We will educate them thoroughly. All ships, combat formation Delta. Let us show the humans what Dellium warfare looks like. Weapons free. Destroy those vessels." The Dellium fleet moved with practiced precision. Energy weapons charged, glowing with barely contained power. Missile tubes loaded their deadly cargo. Point defense systems activated, ready to intercept any counterattack. The human ships came on, not slowing, not wavering. "They're separating," the sensor officer reported, breaking into 4 groups of 3 vessels each. Commander, they're using chemical thrusters for evasive maneuvers. I can see the exhaust plumes. This is incredibly inefficient." "Because they are primitive," Thaxul said. "Fire when in range, the distance closed. 100,000 kilometers. 50,000. 20,000. At 15,000 kilometers, the Dellium fleet opened fire. Space lit up with destruction. Energy beams lanced through the void, each capable of vaporizing a small moon. Missiles streaked forward, their fusion warheads primed to detonate with the force of small stars. And the human ships danced. They twisted and spun, their movements desperate and wild. Chemical thrusters fired in rapid bursts, creating an erratic pattern that was impossible to predict. It was wasteful, inefficient, and somehow effective. The first salvo missed more targets than it hit. "What are they doing?" the tactical officer demanded. No computer could calculate those movements. They're flying manually. That's insane. Thaxul watched with growing respect. One of the human ships took a glancing blow from an energy beam, its crude shields flaring and failing, but the vessel kept moving. Another launched what appeared to be every missile it carried in a single volley. Suicidal tactics that sacrificed all future firepower for one overwhelming barrage. Interesting, Thaxul murmured. They fight without fear. Adjust targeting algorithms. Compensate for irregular movement. The battle evolved into a strange dance. The Dellium fleet hammered at the human vessels with overwhelming firepower, and the humans replied with tactics that bordered on madness. They used their own ships as shields for each other. They rammed disabled vessels into Dellium attack patterns to disrupt targeting. They fired their weapons until the barrels melted, then used the dying ships as missiles themselves, ramming them into Dellium cruisers. One human ship, its entire port side torn away in venting atmosphere, somehow managed to get inside the Dellium formation. It self-destructed, taking 2 Dellium frigates with it in a blaze of nuclear fire. These humans are warriors, Thaxul admitted, watching the tactical display with something approaching admiration. Foolish, doomed warriors, but warriors nonetheless. Helm, pull back our damaged vessels. Let us end this cleanly. The battle lasted 6 hours. One by one, the human ships fell. They fought to the last shot, the last missile, the last breath of their crews. 11 ships became clouds of expanding debris, their crews dying in the cold vacuum of space. The 12th ship, battered almost beyond recognition, made a desperate FTL jump. Thaxul allowed it to go, a survivor to carry word of this defeat back to Earth. Damage report, Thaxul ordered as the weapons fell silent. 7 ships destroyed, 14 heavily damaged, 23 with moderate damage. Casualties estimated at 4,000 personnel. Commander, that's more losses than we took in the last 3 campaigns combined. Thaxul stared at the debris field where the human ships had died. They fought well, he said quietly. But courage without strength is meaningless. Communications broadcast our victory on all galactic channels. Let every species see what happens when primitives challenge the Dellium Empire. The message went out across the galaxy, carried by quantum relays that spanned thousands of light years. The footage showed the Dellium fleet mighty and terrible, crushing the human defenders. It showed the desperate, doomed courage of Earth's ships. It showed the final, broken hull of the last human vessel fleeing into FTL. In the council chambers, the delegates watched and nodded. The humans had been taught their lesson. Order was restored. On Earth, in a bunker beneath the Pacific Ocean, Fleet Admiral Sarah Kowalski watched the same footage. Around her, hundreds of officers and analysts studied every second of the battle, cataloging Dellium tactics, weapon ranges, shield frequencies, and ship movements. How many crews did we lose? Kowalski asked quietly. 216 personnel, Admiral, her aide reported. All volunteers. They knew the mission was one way. Kowalski nodded, her face carved from stone. They bought us everything we needed. Full tactical data on Dellium weapons, shields, and doctrine. They took the bait perfectly, used standard combat formations, didn't suspect a thing. She turned to her communications officer. How long until Thaxul advances into our territory? Long-range sensors show his fleet is moving in system, Admiral. They're heading for our mining colonies. Fleet Commander Thaxul expected to find civilians cowering in the mining colonies. He expected pleas for mercy, perhaps some token resistance from whatever security forces the humans maintained. What he found instead was nothing at all. Report, he commanded, staring at the tactical display showing the 3rd colony they had reached. Like the first 2, it was completely empty. No life signs, Commander, the sensor officer reported. The facilities are intact but abandoned. Power systems are still running, but every human has evacuated. We're detecting the same pattern at all 12 colonies in this sector. Thaxul's mandibles clicked in frustration. They ran. All of them just ran. He turned to his communications officer. Have we received any transmissions? Surrender offers? Pleas for negotiation? Nothing, Commander. Total silence from all human channels. Something cold settled in Thaxul's gut. An instinct honed over 3 centuries of warfare. He had fought cowards before, species that fled rather than face the Dellium Empire. But they always tried to negotiate, always begged for terms. This silence was different. This felt deliberate. Commander, The sensor officer's voice carried an edge of panic. I'm reading. Wait, that can't be right. Ship Alpha 7 just disappeared from sensors. Disappeared? Thaxul strode to the sensor station. Define disappeared. Sir, one moment it was on patrol at grid coordinates 47 Alpha, the next moment, nothing. No distress signal, no explosion, no debris field. It simply stopped existing on our sensors. Before Thaxul could respond, the communications board lit up with incoming signals. Alpha 12 reporting contact with unknown. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Beta Squadron requesting backup. We're under static. This is Carrier Infinite Glory. We are taking fire from silence. Thaxul watched in growing horror as his fleet icons winked out one by one on the tactical display. Not exploding, not fleeing, simply vanishing as if they had never existed. All ships combat alert, he roared. Maximum sensor sweep. Find whatever is attacking us. The sensor officer's hands moved frantically across his console. Commander, I'm detecting massive gravimetric distortions across all sectors. Energy signatures are. Sir, they're not matching any known technology in the Dellium database. What do you mean not matching? I mean these energy readings predate even Vorthai archives. This technology is ancient, Commander. Older than the Council itself. Thaxul's blood ran cold. And then, as if someone had thrown a switch, his sensors lit up like the surface of a star. Contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Appearing simultaneously in perfect formation, surrounding his entire fleet in a sphere of steel and threat. They had been there all along, hidden by technology that made them invisible to every sensor the Dellium Empire possessed. How many? Thaxul whispered. The sensor officer's voice cracked. 15,472 contacts, Commander. All warships. All reading is active and weapons ready. The bridge fell into absolute silence. 15,000 ships. The Dellium 3rd Battle Fleet numbered 300, and he had already lost 73 vessels in the last 10 minutes of invisible attacks. Hail them, Thaxul ordered. I need to speak with whoever commands this force. The view screen flickered to life. A human woman appeared, wearing a crisp military uniform of deep blue. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes held an expression that Thaxul recognized immediately. The look of a predator that had just cornered its prey. Fleet Commander Thaxul, she said. I am Admiral Sarah Kowalski of the Earth Defense Force. I believe we need to have a conversation. Thaxul straightened, trying to maintain his dignity despite the situation. Where did these ships come from? Our intelligence tracked every vessel Earth constructed for 50 years. Kowalski's smile was sharp and cold. You tracked what we allowed you to track. Tell me, Commander, have you heard of Mars? The fourth planet in your system? A barren rock? Not so barren as it turns out. 230 years ago, before the Council even knew we existed, a human expedition to Mars discovered something extraordinary. Ruins. Ancient ruins left by a civilization that existed millions of years before any current Council race evolved. Thaxul felt his 4 hands gripping his throne harder. That's impossible. The archaeological surveys looked where we wanted them to look, Kowalski interrupted. The ruins were deep, Commander. Kilometers below the surface in caverns that natural sensors couldn't penetrate. Inside we found data archives, manufacturing templates, technology that made your energy shields and plasma weapons look like children's toys. She gestured and the view screen split. Alongside her face appeared images, vast underground facilities, strange machines being assembled, ships unlike anything in the Council databases being constructed in secret. For 2 centuries we prepared, Kowalski continued. We built facilities in hollowed-out asteroids. We constructed shipyards on the dark side of our moon where your sensors couldn't detect them. We established bases in the Oort cloud, so far from your observation points that you never even looked, and we built a fleet using technology that predates your entire civilization. But why? Thaxul demanded. Why hide? If you possessed this power, you could have demanded Council membership. We could have shown our hand too early, Kowalski said. Commander, humanity learned something important in our history. Never reveal your true strength until you know your enemy's intentions. We needed to discover what kind of galaxy we were dealing with. Would the Council accept us as equals? Or would they see us as threats to be eliminated or primitives to be exploited? Thaxul understood then. The 12 ships at the Council meeting were bait, Kowalski confirmed. built specifically to match what we thought galactic civilizations would expect from a newly spacefaring race. Old-fashioned propulsion, kinetic weapons, weak shields, all deliberately designed to seem primitive. We fed your intelligence networks exactly what we wanted them to see. False construction yards, fake test flights, ships being built in public view while the real fleet was being constructed in secret. But the casualties, Thaxul said. Your people died fighting my fleet. For the first time, something like genuine emotion crossed Kowalski's face. 216 brave men and women volunteered for that mission. They knew they wouldn't survive. They knew their job was to make their sacrifice look desperate enough to convince you that Earth was defeated. Their sacrifice bought us the intelligence we needed on your tactics, weapons, and shields. And more importantly, it revealed your true nature. What nature? Predators, Kowalski said softly. The Council had a choice, Commander. They could have welcomed Earth as partners. They could have offered genuine cooperation. Instead, they mocked us, threatened us, and then sent you to conquer us. You've shown us exactly what the Galactic Council really is. Not a cooperative alliance, but a hierarchy of bullies maintained by military force. Thaxul looked at his tactical display, at the overwhelming force surrounding his fleet, and made a decision that surprised him. What now? Do you destroy us? Make an example as we tried to make of you? That depends, Kowalski said. We didn't build this fleet to conquer the galaxy, Commander. We built it to ensure that no one could conquer us. But we needed to know who we were dealing with. Now we know. She leaned forward, and her next words carried across space with absolute clarity. You have a choice, Commander. You can surrender your fleet. Your ships will be interned, your crews treated well, and you will face trial for unprovoked aggression against a sovereign species. Or you can fight. And if you fight, I promise you that not one Dellium vessel will leave this system alive. The galaxy will watch as your entire battle fleet is destroyed by the primitives you came here to conquer. Thaxul looked at his bridge crew. Young officers who trusted him, veterans who had served under him for decades. He thought of the 4,000 Dellium who had already died, of the families who would mourn them. He thought of his own pride, the pride of his empire, and what surrender would mean. Then he thought of those 15,000 ships on his sensors and the cold mathematical certainty that his fleet could not win. Admiral Kowalski, he said slowly, I must consult with my staff. May I have 1 standard hour? You may, Kowalski said. But Commander, every minute you delay, the rest of the galaxy is watching. Our broadcast is going out on all channels. The Council is seeing this right now. They're seeing their mighty Dellium fleet surrounded and outmatched. Every moment you wait, you're showing every species in the galaxy that Earth is not the primitive backwater they thought. The screen went dark. Thaxul sat in his command throne, surrounded by his shocked and frightened crew, and faced the hardest decision of his 3-century career. Behind him, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched in stunned disbelief as everything they thought they knew about humanity turned out to be a carefully orchestrated lie. And in the Oort cloud, in asteroid bases, in deep space facilities, more human ships continued to power up, because the 15,000 vessels surrounding Thaxul's fleet were not humanity's secret. They were simply the first wave. The true extent of what Earth had been hiding was still to be revealed. Fleet Commander Thaxul stood alone in his private quarters, the weight of 3 centuries of military service pressing down on him like a physical force. Through the viewport, he could see the human ships, thousands of them, their black hulls seeming to absorb the starlight rather than reflect it. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like the edge of a perfectly crafted blade. His communication console chimed. Commander, the staff has assembled. We await your decision. Thaxul turned away from the viewport and walked back to the bridge. His senior officers stood in a circle, their faces showing a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. 300 years of Dellium military dominance had not prepared them for this moment. Speak freely, Thaxul commanded. What are your thoughts? His tactical officer was the first to respond. Sir, surrender is unthinkable. The Dellium Empire has never surrendered a fleet in 5,000 years of warfare. If we give up without fighting, we will be remembered as cowards. And if we fight? Thaxul asked quietly. The sensor officer pulled up tactical projections on the main display. Sir, I've run every simulation our computers can generate. Even if we assume human weapons are only marginally superior to ours, and the data suggests they're far more than marginal, we cannot win. They outnumber us 50-1. They have us completely surrounded. Their ships are using stealth technology we cannot counter. If we engage, our fleet will be destroyed in minutes, perhaps seconds. Then we die with honor, the tactical officer insisted. We die as Dellium warriors, not as defeated prisoners. You speak of honor, said the ship's medical officer, an older female who rarely contributed to tactical discussions. But what of the 4,000 crew members who will die? What of their families? What of the message we send to every other Dellium fleet in the galaxy? That pride is more important than survival. The tactical officer's mandibles clicked in anger. You suggest we accept humiliation? I suggest we accept reality, the medical officer replied. This human admiral offered us trial, not execution. She offered internment, not massacre. That is more mercy than we came here to offer Earth. Thaxul listened to the debate continue for another 10 minutes, hearing the same arguments repeated with growing passion. Finally, he raised all 4 hands for silence. I have decided, he announced. We will fight. Relief and determination flooded across the tactical officer's face, while the medical officer's expression fell into resigned sadness. But, Thaxul continued, I will do so alone. Confusion rippled through the bridge crew. Sir? His second-in-command asked. I don't understand. Open a channel to all ships in the fleet, Thaxul ordered. When the communications officer nodded confirmation, he began speaking. Attention all vessels of the 3rd Battle Fleet. This is Fleet Commander Thaxul. In 3 centuries of service to the Dellium Empire, I have never given an order that shamed me. Until today. He paused, gathering his thoughts. We came here to conquer a species we believed was weak. We were wrong. We were deceived, yes, but we were also arrogant. We assumed our strength gave us the right to dominate. We never questioned whether that right existed. He could see confusion on the faces of his bridge crew. Admiral Kowalski offered us surrender or death. I offer a third option. All ships will power down weapons and submit to human authority, accept the inevitable judgment. I alone will engage the human fleet. I alone will carry the stain of defeat. When I am gone, you will surrender with honor intact. You followed your commander's orders. I take sole responsibility for this disaster. Commander, no. His second-in-command protested. That's suicide. That is duty, Thaxul corrected. Open a channel to Admiral Kowalski. The human admiral's face appeared on screen almost immediately. Commander Thaxul, have you reached a decision? I have, Thaxul said. My fleet will surrender. I will not, Kowalski's expression didn't change. You intend to fight alone? 1 ship against 15,000? I do. Why? Thaxul's 4 hands gripped his throne. Because someone must pay for the arrogance of the Dellium Empire. Because someone must face consequences. Because I will not ask my crew to die for my failure. Kowalski studied him for a long moment. Your honor is admirable, Commander. But unnecessary. We don't want martyrs. We want accountability. Then you shall have it. I will face your trial. But only after I have fought as a Dellium warrior should fight. To Thaxul's surprise, Kowalski smiled. Not with cruelty, but with what looked like understanding. Very well, Commander. Power up your weapons. We'll give you your battle. But I'm going to do something that might surprise you. I'm going to make it fair. Before Thaxul could ask what she meant, 14,999 of the human ships around his fleet began withdrawing, their formations opening like a flower blooming in reverse. When the movement stopped, only 1 human vessel remained in engagement. Range, a ship roughly the same size as the inevitable judgment. My name is Captain Jennifer Martinez, a new voice said as the view screen switched to show a younger human woman. I command the EDS Unconquered. Commander Thaxul, you want an honorable fight? You've got one. My ship against yours. No interference, no backup. Win, and Admiral Kowalski will allow your fleet to return home. Lose and you face trial, agreed? Thaxul stared at the screen. This was madness. This was mercy. This was respect. This was everything the Council should have offered Earth and hadn't. Agreed, he said. The Unconquered moved into position 3,000 kilometers away. The 2 ships faced each other while 15,000 human vessels watched, and 300 Dellium ships held their breath. Across the galaxy, the Council delegates watched in stunned silence as the battle they thought they understood completely transformed into something else. A duel between warriors, bound by rules both sides acknowledged. Weapons free, Captain Martinez said. Begin when ready. The battle that followed would be discussed in military academies for generations. Thaxul brought 3 centuries of experience and Dellium military doctrine to bear. He used every tactic he knew, every maneuver his people had perfected over millennia of warfare. Martinez countered with technology that seemed like magic. Her shields absorbed energy weapon strikes that should have vaporized them. Her weapons cut through Dellium armor like it was paper. Her ship moved with impossible precision, as if it could predict where his weapons would fire before he gave the orders. But she didn't simply overwhelm him. She matched his tactics, countered his strategies, and fought in a way that showed she understood the difference between defeating an enemy and humiliating them. The battle lasted 30 minutes. In that time, Thaxul damaged the Unconquered's port shields, destroyed 2 of her weapons arrays, and forced Martinez to execute emergency maneuvers 3 times. He fought better than he had ever fought in his life. It wasn't enough. A final barrage from the Unconquered knocked out the Inevitable Judgment's main power systems. Emergency lights flickered on. The bridge crew worked frantically at dying consoles. Thaxul sat in his command throne, breathing heavily, 4 arms hanging limp. "All weapons offline, Commander," his tactical officer reported quietly. "Shields failed. Power at 15%. We cannot continue." Martinez's face appeared on the emergency screen. "Commander Thaxul, you fought with honor. Will you surrender now?" Thaxul looked at his crew, then at the human captain who had defeated him while still showing respect. "I will. Captain Martinez, I formally surrender the Inevitable Judgment and request internment under the terms offered by Admiral Kowalski." "Surrender accepted, Commander. Prepare to be boarded, and, for what it's worth, you're the best opponent I've ever faced." Within hours, human boarding teams secured the Dellium fleet. They were professional and courteous, treating prisoners with dignity. Medical teams immediately began helping the Dellium injured. The human Marines who took Thaxul into custody saluted him as they escorted him to a holding area. Admiral Kowalski met him there personally. "Commander Thaxul, you and your officers will be held for trial on charges of unprovoked aggression. You'll have access to legal counsel, and the trial will be broadcast throughout the galaxy. And my crew will be treated according to the conventions of military law." They were following orders. The Dellium Empire sent them here. They didn't choose this mission. Thaxul nodded slowly. "You are more merciful than we would have been." "We're not doing this out of mercy," Kowalski said quietly. "We're doing this because we want the galaxy to see that there's an alternative to the Council's way. We want every species to understand that strength doesn't have to mean domination." She turned to leave, then paused. "Commander, I reviewed the footage of your battle with Captain Martinez. You fought brilliantly. In another circumstance, we might have been allies instead of enemies." "In another circumstance," Thaxul agreed. "Perhaps we would have." As Kowalski left, Thaxul sat in his cell and activated the news feeds. Across the galaxy, he watched the reactions pour in. The Council was in chaos. The Vorthai were demanding emergency sessions. The Kellish were calculating probabilities, and dozens of smaller species that had been subjugated, exploited, or ignored by the Council, were watching Earth with new interest. The galaxy had changed in the span of a single day. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in progress for 6 hours. High Counselor Vexthal's crystalline form flickered through colors so rapidly it hurt to look at. Red for anger, blue for fear, orange for disgust, cycling endlessly as he struggled to process what every delegate was seeing on their displays. "This is impossible," the Kellish Overmind insisted, its 1,000 voices speaking in perfect synchronization. "Our intelligence networks are flawless. We monitored Earth for 50 standard years. We tracked every satellite, every test flight, every construction facility. There is no way they could have hidden 15,000 warships. And yet they did," Admiral Krethul said quietly. The massive Dellium stood to one side of the chamber, his forearms hanging limply. His nephew, Fleet Commander Thaxul, was currently imprisoned by humans. The shame of it had shaken the entire Dellium military hierarchy. The footage played again on the chamber's main display. Human ships, sleek and deadly, surrounding the third battle fleet. The one-on-one duel between Thaxul and Captain Martinez. The professional, almost gentle manner in which human Marines had taken prisoners. And most disturbing of all, Admiral Kowalski's speech explaining how Earth had hidden its true capabilities for 2 centuries. "We need to respond, insisted Councillor Trevmar of the Bendari Confederacy. We cannot allow this challenge to Council authority to stand. If Earth gets away with this deception, every protectorate and client species will start questioning our oversight. What do you suggest? Vextal asked. Send another fleet? The humans just defeated 300 Dellium warships with minimal losses. They have 15,000 ships we know about. How many more might they have hidden? Then we send everything, Trevmar argued. The combined Council fleets number over 30,000 warships. We will overwhelm them with pure numbers. Admiral Thaxul shook his great head. You're not thinking clearly. The humans didn't just defeat us, they were toying with us. Their technology is superior. Those ancient ruins they found on Mars. I've been reviewing the archaeological databases. There are legends of a precursor civilization that vanished millions of years ago, species that could shape space-time itself. If the humans have access to even a fraction of that technology, he didn't need to finish. The implications hung in the chamber like a death sentence. We need more intelligence, the Kalesh Overmind stated. We need to know the full extent of Earth's military capability before we... The Overmind stopped speaking mid-sentence. Every delegate turned to look at it. The swarm of interconnected beings had gone completely still. Overmind? Vextal asked. What's wrong? Our long-range sensors, the Overmind said slowly, its unified voice carrying a note of horror. We're detecting massive energy signatures throughout human space. Dozens of them, hundreds. They're powering up. Ships, bases, weapons platforms. They've been hidden, dormant, and now they're coming online. How many? Vextal demanded. The sensor data flowed onto the chamber's displays. The delegates watched in growing disbelief as contact after contact appeared. Ships emerging from the Oort cloud. Hidden bases in asteroid fields revealing themselves. Massive construction yards that had been invisible to every scan activating their power cores. Estimated count, the Overmind said quietly, is over 100,000 warships. And that's just the first wave of contacts. More are appearing every minute. The chamber fell into absolute silence. 100,000 ships. The entire Galactic Council's combined military might total 32,000 vessels. Accumulated across thousands of years by dozens of species, Earth had hidden more than 3 times that number, and had built them in secret over just 2 centuries. This changes everything, Vextal whispered. Before anyone could respond, every communication screen in the chamber activated simultaneously. Ambassador Elena Chen appeared, no longer wearing the simple black suit from her last visit. Now she wore a military uniform similar to Admiral Kowalski's, and her expression held none of the diplomatic neutrality from before. Greetings, esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Chen said. I apologize for interrupting your deliberations, but we thought you should know something important. The fleet you've been watching, the 15,000 ships that defeated the Dellium Third Battle Fleet, that wasn't our military. That was our first defensive fleet, designed to protect our home system. She gestured, and the display split to show streaming footage from dozens of locations. Ships massive beyond comprehension moving through space. Mobile shipyards the size of moons. Weapons platforms that could crack planets. What you're seeing now is our actual military capability, Chen continued. 118,000 warships across 7 full fleets. 43 mobile shipyards capable of constructing new vessels anywhere in the galaxy. 16 planet-class defense stations. And several dozen experimental vessels that use technology, even we don't fully understand yet. Vextal found his voice. You're attempting to intimidate us. This is a bluff, is it? Chen's smile was sharp. Your sensors are tracking every contact I'm describing right now. This isn't a hollow projection or a tactical simulation. These ships are real, Counselor. They exist. They're armed. And they're currently moving into formation around your council territory. She leaned forward. But we're not here to conquer you. We're here to deliver a message, and you're going to listen to it very carefully. Another figure appeared beside Chen on the screen. A being that looked vaguely reptilian, with scales that shifted through multiple colors. Then another, an insectoid creature nothing like the Kalesh. Then a fourth, something that appeared to be made of liquid metal. Allow me to introduce our allies, Chen said. Species that the Council rejected, exploited, or ignored. Species that you deemed too primitive, too different, or too troublesome to be worth your attention. While you were watching Earth, we were making contact with them. While you were congratulating yourselves on deceiving primitive humans, we were forming an alliance. The reptilian being spoke, Its voice translated into standard galactic. I am Coordinator Siskra of the Saurian Collective. The Council denied us membership 300 years ago because our technology didn't meet your arbitrary standards. Earth gave us the precursor archives. Now our ships fight alongside theirs. The insectoid spoke next. I am Hive Mother Zeth. The Council classified my species as non-sentient because our communication methods confused your analysts. Earth recognized our intelligence and treated us as equals. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid. The liquid metal being flowed into a vaguely humanoid shape. I am Unity Prime. My people were enslaved by the Dellium Empire for 2 centuries. Earth helped us escape and gave us sanctuary. We stand with them against any threat. Chen looked directly into the camera. The galaxy has a choice to make, Council. You can continue operating as you have. A hierarchy maintained by military force, where ancient species dominate and emerging races are exploited. Or you can accept that things have changed. What are you proposing? Admiral Thaxul asked quietly. A new council, Chen said. One based on equality, not age. One that protects emerging species instead of subjugating them. One that operates by consensus rather than threat. Earth and our allies are willing to share the precursor technology we've developed, defensive systems, medical advances, propulsion upgrades, with any species that joins this new coalition. She paused. But let me be absolutely clear. We will not be denied, dismissed, or dominated. If the current council structure refuses to change, we will create our own. And every species that has suffered under your rule will have the option to join us. How many of your protectorates do you think will choose to stay with you when they see an alternative? Fextal's crystalline form pulsed with chaotic colors. You're threatening to split the galaxy. We're offering to unite it, Chen corrected. But on terms that are fair to everyone, not just the oldest civilizations. The precursor species that left those ruins on Mars, they fell because they became complacent. They assumed their strength would last forever. They stopped innovating, stopped questioning, stopped growing. Don't make the same mistake. And if we refuse? Trevmar demanded. If we choose to fight? Chen's expression hardened. Then you'll discover that 118,000 warships is just what we've revealed so far. You'll learn that humanity spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment. You'll understand why every species that joins our alliance does so willingly, not under threat of force. And you'll realize too late that you had a chance to be partners and chose to be enemies instead. The screen went dark. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. The Kellish swarm fragmented into arguing subgroups. 3 different species began demanding immediate military action, while 4 others called for negotiation. Admiral Thaxul stood quietly in the middle of the chaos, thinking about his nephew sitting in a human prison cell, thinking about how thoroughly Earth had deceived them all, thinking about the impossible number of ships his sensors were tracking. Counselors, he said quietly. No one heard him over the shouting. Counselors, he roared, his voice shaking the chamber walls. Silence fell. We cannot win a war with Earth, Thaxul said simply.